Welcome everyone. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about Lake Doric. Now usually I would like to discuss the new map that comes out with a patch pretty early on. Well, this time because of the whole double release thing again, we're doing this a bit later, and no doubt a lot of you guys have already been in the map, so do forgive me if I don't give you an amazing amount of details you haven't already found out. But for those of you who maybe haven't played too much of the recent patch, who have just got one eye on the game instead, perhaps you'll find this very interesting. Just what did Lake Doric finally end up being? And I have to say, they've pushed the spectrum a little bit again here for Season 3 maps, and I think included some stuff we're very likely to see in new ones that come out in later patches too. Now remember, here's the devs' intention, not necessarily going to happen, but it's their intention to get a new map out each episode, and should that happen in the future, like I say, I think we'll see some of these new systems thrown in there. So let's talk about basic things first of all. Lake Doric is not the same size as the early development version that we had talked so much about before. It's actually about a third of that size. It covers one flank of Divinity's Reach. It's to the north of one of the Queensdale dams, the same one we speculated about in the trailer, so good job there. Though the dam that breaks in the trailer is not actually the same one that led to Queensdale, interestingly enough. But so the theme of the map is that it's actually post Lake Doric. Lake Doric has been drained away by events of the main story I won't go into here, as we're going to be avoiding spoilers for that for now. But it's a very cool perspective you get from the map as a result of this, because it really looks like the devs developed the whole map with a high water level. They made villages and docks and seaside resort towns and swamps and ponds and lakes. They made all this stuff based on this basin of water. And then it looks like right at the end of creating the map, they drained it out, because it all lines up so consistently and beautifully. It's one of the most interesting things about the map, and I think what would have made this a totally standout patch that didn't happen in the end would have been if we got to do some kind of personal story instance where we saw an alternate version of this new map where the water level was at its original height again, because I think that would be totally mind-blowing to see. You get so used to seeing this new drained out state, but evidence of what it once looked like in the environment. It's very, very impressive. Probably some of the most impressive environmental storytelling that they've done in the game so far. So another thing that really impressed me about the map, even though it is only a third of the size that maybe I was hoping for, is how it connects to the real world. Yes, remember Bloodstone Fen, remember Bitterfrost Frontier, remember Emberbait. None of these maps, in my opinion, had very good connections to the real world. Bitterfrost Frontier did okay because there was a portal they added in Frostgorge Sound that let us go up there, but the geography of Bitterfrost Frontier totally cut off an inland ocean and made Frostgorge Sound, being a sound, total nonsense, and they've never really done it that well. This patch, they did it brilliantly. So there are two entrances to the map. One of them is in Divinity's Reach. It's at the Lissa waypoint. So once upon a time, this was just a wall, and now it's a portal into a new map. And all the free-to-play players and new people that come in, people that didn't unlock this release in time, they're going to see that portal there with a big red X in front of it until they start that story. And that, I think, is a very strong way of ArenaNet monetizing the game, which they need to sort of pull their finger out on, given some of their quarterly reports recently. Nonetheless, I loved this. I love seeing a real logical connection to the real world. It sounds like that. It looks like they've listened to the community over some of their more recent patches and resolved this. And even better, there's another exit too, and that's at the river that goes to Harathi Hinterlands. I cannot tell you how awesome this is. The development version of Lake Doric had that connection that they perhaps were thinking about putting in. In Harathi Hinterlands, since the launch of the game, you could see a boat that sailed into Arca Lake in Harathi Hinterlands from Lake Doric, and now that actually makes sense. It's amazing. It's like the water levels and the height of Arca Lake would have once upon a time fed the Lake Doric Lake, which has now been drained out, so we see it as a fast-moving river. It all lines up so perfectly, and I have to applaud that. This was one of my main problems with the new map. It's a petty thing, but a thing that got under my skin nonetheless, and they nailed it on this one, which I'm very, very happy about. So, talking about the map itself for us as players, those of us who don't care so much about the geography, one of the more prominent features of this map I'll get into in a little bit is a new leather farm, and we'll talk about the economy that came with that. There is a new item like berries and like petrified wood and like the rubies. They're jade shards now, so they're sort of thrown all over the place, presumably remnants or coagulated magic left about as a result of a large attack that occurred on Divinity's Reach. The gliding mechanic, also because there's a lot of magic in this area of the world, the gliding mechanic from Bloodstone Fen, whereby while gliding you actually get skills you can use. You can drop a heal field, you can nuke things, you can auto attack, you can dodge roll in the air, and you can boost yourself. All of those skills do make a return on this new map, but they've done it in a pretty clever way. See, I always loved those skills, and I always really enjoyed them in Bloodstone Fen, which was certainly a map built for sky combat, but I was also someone in the camp that maintained these should not go to everywhere else interior. These skills are massive power creep if they end up everywhere in the game, and there are a few little tricks you could do to bypass movement mechanics and stuff by taking tiny little glides and then slamming the skill 5 and charging around. So these skills I don't think deserve to be everywhere interior, but the way that they put them into Lake Doric now, which is the second time we've seen them, is very smart. They're attached to the ley lines in the map, so you will glide and you will not get these skills, but if you glide into a ley line, the ley line will infuse you with magic and give you those new potent abilities, and it creates a pretty striking balance. The ley lines are things that you definitely want to go into on this map because they can move you so fast. Not just the ley line itself, but you come out of the ley line with these badass new capabilities and can go zooming around and start nuking stuff to your heart's content. I think that this, if anything, we might see in a lot of other new maps too, and it's great to see those skills, and it's great to see all of that progression we got in Bloodstone Fen become a thing again. In fact, I think the developers said they have 3 different Living World teams, and it was the Bloodstone Fen guys that did this map. And so then that would make a lot of sense that they brought those skills back, wouldn't it? No? And maybe that then allows us to speculate that the next map might have a lot more stuff with, I don't know, thermal tubes. But thermal tubes have been pretty common. I guess we'll see. Another big new mechanic that goes on in this map, and it's something, again, I think we'll see in the subsequent ones too, is called Seraph morale. So what this is every time you complete an event, you'll get a stacking buff on your character. Those who have been playing the game for a long time, since the Silver Waste came out, might recognize this. In the Silver Waste, you get extra magic find and stuff for completing events. Well, in this map, you get Seraph morale, and Seraph morale actually helps you in combat. It stacks up to 10 times, and so after you've done 10 events, you'll be at max stacks, and as you gain stacks, it gets increasingly stronger. Listen to this, right? With max Seraph morale, when you enter combat, you will get 10 seconds of might, fury, swiftness, regeneration, protection. You'll get 20% increased maximum health. You'll get 20% increased damage, and every 25 kills you score from that point will summon an assassin ally, which is incredibly reminiscent of an old Guild Wars 1 skill related to the Eben Vanguard, who have several references in Lake Doric. It's huge. This is crazy. You're so much stronger if you stack Seraph morale up. So it's an interesting thing that I think they're going to use to encourage people to stay in the map for that little bit longer. You kind of snowball against the forces of the White Mantle the longer that you're in Lake Doric. The only problem, I think, is that there's nothing really in Lake Doric which really requires or incentivizes you too much to get max stacks, because a lot of the stuff just dies anyway. I think that if Lake Doric, just like I said with Bitterfrost Frontier 2, I think that if Lake Doric had a Silver Waste style end meta event, where there's some big thing that's difficult to do, if that existed, then Seraph morale would be really cool, because people would run around the map grabbing as much Seraph morale as possible to give them the highest chance to beat this final boss. That final boss doesn't exist though, so I think they missed out a little bit there, but hey, it's a cool thing. And again, I think that these map specific buffs that you get now we'll see replicated in future content. Once again, with the map, there are lots of little goodies and interesting things you can see they're playing with. Vistas on this map have a very prominent depth of field effect, so they look a lot more beautiful than any other vistas we've really had, aside from obviously the aesthetics of whatever that vista is trying to show. So they've got depth of field on there. The mob AI is still improved, like we saw with Bitterfrost Frontier, though perhaps a little bit less pronounced, but they are White Mantle and have a lot of really cool different kinds of skills. Particularly people have been analyzing these White Mantle abilities, specifically those in the story, and speculating that maybe these are early signs at new elite specialization abilities, such as White Mantle Necromancers summoning skeletons, which is very curious, because we do know that in Season 2, they had Marjorie equip a Greatsword, and then Necromancer got Greatsword. I know I definitely wouldn't put it past ArenaNet to be doing little hints like that. The Centaurs, which do return on this map, have got like these new stampeding effects, which I think we've seen a little bit of before, but things generally generally, the quality of the game is up again, and they keep making these little incremental improvements that are piling on top of one another, making the experience better and better each time. Now, there is a meta event, or several meta events in this map. I don't really understand much of them just yet, as I haven't participated in them too much, but they're essentially various areas of the map which the White Mantle will make dedicated, sincere pushes to try and take over, and it's your job to defend them. Think very much like some of, say, even the Queensdale meta events, like defending Beetleton. It's kind of like that, but the attacks are a lot more pronounced, and I've got various elements to them, like you'll have a commander, like a centaur commander, who's attacking an outpost from a distance while a defense event's going on, and you need to clear both, say. So that's how the meta's going. Lots of rewards in there. Let's move on now to talk about specific areas of the map and some of the standouts for me, some of the things that you guys might have missed that I think is really cool. So first, let's talk about Doric's Landing. Doric's Landing is a dock right on the edge of Divinity's Reach. Again, this would have looked amazing when the water was at its regular level. Now it's dilapidated. Now it's got lots of White Mantle forces around and Bloodstone creatures. And the idea of this area with its heart is that you are helping the Seraph get back on their feet. You're waking them up, feeding hungry ones, training with them, and letting them push out into Lake Doric to reclaim the map. This is also where you actually get access to the core vendor for the map. So remember, Bitterfrost Frontier had the Coden Sanctuary in the center with a vendor there that you could buy numerous things from. Well, that's where this character is. Interestingly, the items available are slightly different for this patch. And again, I think they're going to go further with this. So for the first 3 maps of Living World Season 3, this vendor would be selling you Ascended Trinkets. And this, generally speaking, has been a really quick, really easy way of getting Ascended Trinkets. Very cheap. Like, back pieces usually would be very expensive, but you can bypass a lot of that stuff just in the new maps. So it was pretty logical to think that Lake Doric would do the same thing, right? They didn't. I guess it's because they think there's already enough places to get trinkets and they don't need to keep piling them on. And I can agree with that. It's probably also something to do with making Bitterfrost Frontier still worthwhile as a gem purchase for people who missed it, instead of just getting all their trinkets from Lake Doric instead, because that's also another opportunity. Maybe there's something there. I think it's all very reasonable. I personally kind of wanted more trinkets, I must say, just because I like to get all my different stat sets with totally different items instead of the same thing just selected for different stats, because I've got this stupid thing about it. And so, yeah, that was a bit unfortunate. But the items have been replaced by something else. Now, that is a new stat type has come to the game with this patch, and I think that the future patches will do this as well. This is actually pretty big, guys. So you've got the core stat types like Berserker and Valkyrie and Carrion and Rabid and so forth. Then we had some weird different stat types when Fractals came out for the trinkets, which were odd mixes and really ArenaNet need to address. Then through Living World Season 1, we got a couple more like Zealots. Then with Heart of Thorns, we got a big batch, and it looked like from that point, and with Heart of Thorns, it was Vipers and Commanders and so forth, and it looked like from that point, we weren't going to get any more actual stat combos until the next expansion, and then they'd add a bunch more, maybe 5 type, maybe 3 type, whatever. Well, here, we've actually got a new one in the Living World, for the first time since Heart of Thorns came out. It's called the Seraph set, and the Ascended version is named after Captain Thackeray. So, Seraph Thackeray, it kind of, I was hoping, would have a lot of use on Guardians. Wouldn't it be cool to be a Guardian and be wearing the Thackeray armor type? So what stats is this? Well, that's where it kind of falls down. It's Condition Damage Major, Precision Major, Healing Minor, and Boon Duration Minor, Concentration Minor. So, it's kind of obvious what this is going for. It's like the condition damage version of Zealots. So for those of you who don't know, Zealots is a healing set, but it's still got a lot of offense loaded into it, but that's power offense. Well, this is the same idea, except instead of flat damage, it's condi damage. Well, so who can take advantage of all of those? Ooh, I don't really know. My most blunt speculation now is maybe Engineer, but I haven't looked into it. I kind of want to do a video trying to figure out what the best place to run this gear is, but I'm just not sure. I can tell you that if Zeal, specifically the Zeal specialization for Guardian, is buffed substantively, like quite a lot, if Burn Guardian actually finds a place in PvE at any point, you might find Guardians genuinely can run this on like Healing Guardians potions that are mostly doing burn damage at the same time, but I think the class is a long way off from being able to run it right now, and I don't see it many other places. Some people thought maybe even Healing Tempest could get value from it, and it can. I mean, I was running Apothecaries before, and this would just be a better version of Apothecaries, but I still think that Zealots is better at the moment, and it's kind of weird. I'd love to hear in the comments if you guys have actually looked at it and started playing with Thackeray. I know some Rangers have tried. It's a puzzling one. It's a shame that the stat set doesn't really have any place. I wonder if when the devs threw this in, they had a specific build in mind that they wanted it to work with, or they were just winging it. Either way, I think it's a very good idea. And should these stat sets actually find a place, it's incredible replayability for these maps. Think about stuff like Nightmare Runes or Monk Runes and how they encourage people to actually still play dungeons these days. Well, the same thing would happen with Lake Doric a year from now if the Thackeray set gets a real place. I know that this stat set doesn't necessarily have anything right now, but you've also got to consider it's a good thing for the game because at any point in the future, if they rebalance the scaling of condition damage or concentration or healing power or precision or any other specialization changes happen, suddenly there is now the potential for this stat set to be a thing, and there is the potential for Lake Doric to have everybody suddenly look at it again, I don't know, a few months down the line when we get a balance pass. So all of that stuff I think is pretty cool, and we'll see what happens in time. That's basically it for Doric's Landing, really. It's got a cool name, obviously, and the other fun thing I liked about this heart was the return of the Claypool stuff. So in Queensdale, there's a heart you can do where you have to pick up a shield and defend yourself, or you can pick up a rifle and learn how to aim and fire. It's one of my favorite hearts in the entire game. I think it's an awesome heart at Claypool, and guess what you can do in Lake Doric at Doric's Landing? The exact same stuff. They brought it over, and I couldn't be happier. It's brilliant. Another little area moving on of the map to do our little tour here is the Eastern Divinity Reservoir. Okay, so this is the other side of the Queensdale Dam. Remember I was talking about how happy I am with how seamlessly this map integrates into the rest of the world? Oh, this feels so good. Not only is there some really interesting geography and paths to walk on at the dam, which already was very fun, the sewers are here. Oh my god, the sewers, guys. So long-time watchers of my channel will know that I have been a big ponderer of the Divinity's Reach sewers for a while now. The sewers appeared in one of the novels. The sewers were hinted at with the Great Collapse, the old version of Divinity's Reach before the Crown Pavilion was a thing. The sewer pipes are very prominent around the Grenth waypoint, and in the development version of Lake Doric, the big version of the map, which we never got in the end, on that you could see a sewer pipe entrance. I have speculated for a long time that they might have been looking at doing a dungeon down there or something to that effect years ago, and it never came true. I still like the idea of a raid in a sewer, to be honest. And well, when this map came out, I was a bit curious, okay, is the sewers going to get preserved? Because new Lake Doric is nothing like old Lake Doric. They didn't have to do anything with the sewers. But at the Eastern Divinity Reservoir, you can get a peek under the city. And there's a little boy hiding behind the grate that you can talk to. It's brilliant, guys. One day, we will go to the sewers. I'm so happy the developers remembered that set piece in their world, and that they actually put a little nod into it there. This is fantastic. So yeah, nothing really much to do at the reservoir, but that was bloody brilliant, I must say. Moving on, we've got New Loamhurst, which sounds a lot more interesting than maybe it ended up being. This is a town in the new map. There's a heart there, and your goal is to restore the beauty of the area after it's been attacked. This is one of those places that I think it's fantastic to see what the map would have been like with the higher water level, because you can see a little pond in the middle, and you can just tell that the water from this lock used to come right up into this town, and now it doesn't anymore. But you can plant flowers and restore banners and stuff like that. Now, it's called New Loamhurst, which is very interesting for the lore. Loamhurst was one of those old towns in Kryta we could go to in Guild Wars 1, not located in this region of the world. It seems like they maybe closed it down and set up shop elsewhere. You really can't get much lore about the founding of New Loamhurst, though, and that very much disappointed me. And you can't get much lore about what happened to Old Loamhurst. One of the interesting things about this place is once you complete this heart, you can get some new food as well. So new food's been a staple in all of these new maps. This again was something that people were trying to insider trade on. If you missed the AMA video I did yesterday, you can click the link on screen to find out more on that. But these are saffron mussels and Lake Doric mussels. I think it's a good idea to have some food in there that is to do with mussels, another one of these Heart of Thorns foods that came in. But the food here is actually going to complement the Thackeray set and the Seraph set. So it's all about precision and healing, or condi damage and healing. And again, I can't help but think who's running this stuff right now. So there is some new food, and maybe when a build pops up that utilizes those very, very, very well, that food will be awesome for you. Moving on. There's another area. There seems to be a lot of Melandru themed stuff in this map. Very naturey themed stuff. There's a place called Melandru's Refuge, which is kind of cool because it reminds me of like Ryland Refuge and Ventari's Refuge and the refuges of GW1. This is a swamp. It's a swamp that's also been drained of its water. But obviously swamps are a main thing in Crysis, so it's nice to see a bit of one there. There are lots of oak hearts in the swamp that have been bloodstone crazed because of some crates that are around there filled with bloodstone shards, it seems. But what's really cool about this area is a secret door in one of the corners near a statue to Melandru. This door only opens when you escort like a ghost over to it, and once you get inside, there's a mini jumping puzzle area with an incredibly easy to get achievement. It's not a fully fledged jumping puzzle. We haven't really had anything like the Chalice of Tears since the Rising Flames patch, but what was awesome about this place nonetheless is it's a big reference to Guild Wars 1. There are tons of graves of GW1 characters, including the final resting place of Captain Langmar. And notably, this seems to be related to the war in Kryta. It was some kind of building, some temple, some place that was built about 10 years after Guild Wars 1 closed. So Guild Wars 1 players never got to see this. But about 10 years after Guild Wars 1 closed, they built this temple here. And by the time we get to it in Guild Wars 2, it's fallen into ruin and you can talk to a ghost about it in that location. Very, very fun place. And I was glad I stuck around on my first time in the map just to wait for that door to open up. Very nice stuff. Moving on, probably one of my favorite areas of the whole map, Lakeside Bazaar. So the Lakeside Bazaar is one of the things we saw in the trailer. Remember this like town built with all this woods? That's this place. So these are new houses. These are assets that we haven't seen in the game before. So it feels quite magical. It feels quite new. You get that sense of mystery coming back if you're a diehard Guild Wars 2 player that is desperate for as much new stuff as you possibly can. I really love this town, and there's loads of locations in it that I thought would have a use in the main story that didn't in the end. There's like a big town hall and lots of like stairways up and down. It's brilliant around here. So the heart, okay, is actually Sin Furserai. Human players from the personal story who made some specific choices will remember this dude. He's a trader. You talk to him about a subpoena and about some paper that he delivered back during the personal story stuff. Personal story gets so much reference in this patch in the main events. It made me really happy to see Sin come back here too. Sin has a big collection event across the entire map where you're grabbing all these things that he might like to trade, I believe. But what's great about what he offers is there's another potion like the Kodan Tonic in this map, guys. So, if you remember when I was talking about the raw patch notes, I pointed out that the Watch Night Tonic was actually changed to work like the Kodan Tonic in that it's now a permanent thing you can do. Not only did they do that, which basically added another one to the game, but they've added a third one here too. Sin sells it to you. It's the same thing as the Kodan Tonic in terms of like karma and how you get it and the price. But what this is a mini tonic. This is amazing. So this potion, when you drink it, shrinks you down to be really, really, really small, but it allows you to continue fighting. So we've seen stuff in the game before that makes us very small, but nothing like this, nothing that lets us fight, nothing that lets us use all of our regular abilities. And believe me, you become tiny. Look at this. What's even better is Valentine's Day, one of the old gem store things that they sold was a box of chocolates. And this box of chocolates, you can drink milk chocolate, I think it is, or maybe it's white chocolate, and it will shrink you down even further. And because this new tonic allows you to use the box of chocolates, you can double up. And you can become the smallest thing we've ever seen in Guild Wars 2. It's amazing. I've had so much fun running around using this. And you know what's on my mind now as well? I know it's always more, right? But what if the next map adds the opposite? What if there's a big version? Because again, the core game, Guild Wars 2's core game, did have a growth tonic. It's just that you couldn't use it and your regular skills. Well, now maybe they're going to give that to us, a big version, please, so I can combo it with Rampage on the Warrior. It would be brilliant. Yeah, the biggest thing we could possibly be. So I'm looking forward to that. Another thing at Lakeside Bazaar, there's a cool temple to the Six with tons of white mantle that keep charging through there. I must say, I was a little bit disappointed with this patch when I got to this part because there's so many events killing the White Mantle, it really struck me that they're just called monsters. In fact, the event at this area in Lakeside Bazaar specifically refers to them as such. And they didn't really impress very well that these White Mantle attacking this temple are probably people that lived and worshipped at this temple for many years, and that they are humans that feel they have a right to Kryta just like any others. The main story does a good job of showing these different facets of the White Mantle, sure, but the open world, you're just slaughtering tons of men. So that's wonderful, right? Another really excellent little touch at the Lakeside Bazaar is a well in which a man has fallen, and he doesn't know what's going on up above. He doesn't know if it's White Mantle attacking or dragons or what, and he's calling up to you. Now, if you go north into another region of the map and find a honeycomb that you can kick down from a tree, you can give it to this dude, get an achievement, and a couple of days later, he'll send you a mail from the well saying, hey, thanks very much. Very, very funny little part of the patch. And lastly, at Lakeside Bazaar, this is one that really struck me. As you guys know, I'm very much into decorating. The guild that I run, the Spud Club, we do a lot of stuff with this. Our aim is to get 10 of every decoration in the game. And not only did a new raid wing release, thus meaning there's more gold trophies to go for, which is already a ton of new stuff, but also there are a bunch of decorations that got dropped in with this map. Again, something we haven't seen yet. So I was a little bit disappointed with the most recent festival, the Lunar New Year, where they only added one new decoration. They've redeemed themselves here. There's a ton of decorations based on Cordicus's manor, and you have to complete the story before you can get access to these, but they're in a hidden room in the Lakeside Bazaar you can walk into. Again, this idea of sealing off parts of the maps until people have finished story, I really like and want to see them keep doing. I was happy that that made a return. But there's a vendor in here who will sell you stuff. Now, these decorations are pricey, very expensive. Don't forget that the entire decorations have always been balanced for an entire guild to chip in for. So I've spent already, what, 850 gold on this stuff so far, but you get some incredible stuff like those beautiful head things from Cordicus's manor, and lots more paintings and vases and elaborate stuff. It's just kind of one of these very high prestige, massive gold sinks that they put into the map. The discussion of the price of scribing probably doesn't fall into the realm of this video, but I liked that they put more decorations in with a patch, full stop, really. So that's one of the big areas. Another one, or another two places, are Sidrus Haven and Fort Avinia. So these are two locations named after the founding members of the Shining Blade. There was another guy called Marcus, but he turned out to be a bastard, so he doesn't get his own location, which makes lots of sense. Again, just like with New Loamhurst, though, neither of these locations could I find in the patch. Maybe I'm missing it. You know, real lore and information about their founding and why they're named what they're named, which is kind of a shame. It means that the throwback to these characters is only as deep as the names of the locations on the map. But Sidrus Haven, specifically, is a seaside resort. The heart is involving grabbing fish out of the drained lake and feeding people. I don't really have too much to say on that one. And Fort Avinia, though, is amazing. Fort Avinia is a stealth location. You guys might remember in some of the vanilla maps they played with this. For example, the Ash Legion, I think there were 2 different hearts in Core Guild Wars 2 where you have to stealth yourself and do various stuff. They did this one really, really well. You sneak into Fort Avinia, which has been taken over by the White Mantle, and it feels really linear. It felt like I was playing a single-player game while I was here. It integrates into the main story super well. You have to sabotage them and free prisoners and stuff, but only while the White Mantle aren't looking at you. And you can kind of ping to see whether you're going to be noticed by any of them. It's brilliant. This is also where the portal to Harathi Hinterlands is if you jump down beneath Fort Avinia. An excellent, excellent, excellent part of the map, and something that I really enjoyed. Alright, so now we're in the more northern areas of the map that I want to talk about. Let's talk about the Centaur leather farming area. Well, so many people knew for a long time that ArenaNet were going to put a leather farm into the game because there perhaps hadn't been enough sources of leather and the economy was in a really bad state. And I agree that leather being too expensive has been a problem. It's used for a lot of core recipes. It's bloated certain other scribing recipes. Like, to go back to scribing, statues take leather for chisels, and just because leather is expensive, it made all the statues ridiculously expensive when that was clearly not intended. So a leather farm came into the game. How did it do? Well, it doesn't seem to have affected leather that much. I think some investment and manipulation has stagnated whatever change we might see, but that means there's now a dedicated farm you can do and also get some pretty good profit off of by running through. The idea is you have to climb through centaur-infested territory all the way up to a tower where an event might be triggered, and as you go you can pick up all these little boxes and you can kill centaurs themselves, which gives you hide that you salvage into all different tiers of leather at once, which also I think is quite a nice touch. As you're charging up, it actually plays some raid music and it feels really intense. These centaurs hit hard, very hard. So run builds that have lots of reflects, run builds that can support one another, go in there with friends, and it's kind of a place where you definitely can get a lot of leather, a dedicated reward for a dedicated farm. It's just the TP hasn't changed too much. Maybe you guys have got some comments on that and we'll have to watch it over the next little while to see if maybe the devs need to change the drop rates or something. Who knows? But that is a big part of the map. Lastly, we have a hidden little area right in the north called the Watcher's Hollow. This is actually quite difficult to get to. It's very much like the hidden area in the south. Both are seemingly related to Melandru. It's curious to me, but the fun thing about this place is there's another new thing they're playing with, and that's a map buff that you can get, a lot like the Seraph morale I talked about at the start of this video. So there's a tree you can harvest once a day, and you get a buff that lasts an hour on you that stacks on top of food and stuff called the Blessing of the Harvest Forest by eating this peach. And this just gives you straight up an extra 100 power and 100 extra condition damage while you're in Lake Doric. So it's just more buffs for this specific map. If you have 10 Seraph and you have this and you have food and stuff, it's a level 80 map. You're getting some ridiculous numbers in here, and you can really aggress the White Mantle and finish the events a lot quicker, I guess. Curious stuff. You get a peach core at the end. I thought it might be related to a tree in the raid as well, but it just seems to be a fun little thing that they've dropped in there. And last but not least, the thing that I think most people like about this map, I think I prefer some of the other things that I've talked about earlier, but there is one final heart. This is at the Harvest Cascades at the very north. So the name of the area, the Cascades, it's perhaps relating to the Woodland Cascades, which aren't too much further north than this, guys. We're getting pretty far out of Kryta at this point, very far to the north. This is a heart about a man who lives alone, and he's out in this remote area with lots of supplies. He did this back during the Zaitan threats. There are a lot of cool little references to earlier story in this map that I very much appreciated. Like if you go to the actual area where one of the dams was destroyed, you can find some Seraph that say, oh, I thought the attacks were done since Scarlet. And so you get a reference to Season 1. Here, this guy was originally moved here because of the Zaitan threat. He was worried that Zaitan was going to hurt everyone. He came out here with his family. His family, though, unfortunately has passed away, and now he's a hermit. It's quite sad, honestly. You can find their graves up to the north. A lot of people have been talking about being moved by this. But he's built a labyrinthine dungeon filled with tricks and traps beneath his house. Once you finish the heart by killing lots of centaurs or foes in the area, you can buy a key from him and then descend into this labyrinth to get a bonus chest that's got loads of jade shards, which is the map reward. This is very fun. They've got like these long alleyways with tons of log traps that swing around. Log traps that they had used in Vanilla Guild Wars 2 at one jumping puzzle in Mount Maelstrom, but not really anywhere else. So I was really happy to see that they'd reused those. I hate it when I play through core stuff and I'm like, oh, look at this cool asset. They just haven't touched on it for years. Well, they did on this one, and I think it's a fantastic little area. Probably the most fun of the hearts, except maybe the stealth one. And that's Lake Doric for you guys. That's a rundown of the map. There are a lot of details I could probably go into further. I guess I'll reserve those for a video in the future. If there's anything you'd love to have expanded on, or you think I missed from this video, please do let me know in the comments, because I'll roll that information into the future and other people can just read. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time for the last thing to talk about with the patch, which is, of course, that delicious main story summary. And from that point, spoilers will start appearing on the channel. Hope you guys have a good day. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you shortly.